welcome to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Although the Bihar Assembly may have given its verdict, the debate on them is far from over. There are actually two kinds of debates that are doing the rounds. One is the inner party debate within the BJP, with the veterans staging a near kind of mini revolt. But the other one takes a larger look at the impact of the results on governance at the centre. How will the Bihar Assembly affect Modi's governance right here in New Delhi and thereby the rest of India? That is the question that we are going to be debating in this edition of Roundtable. For this, I have with me Rajiv Chandrasekhar, Rajya Sabha MP. He's an independent Rajya Sabha MP, so we're going to see what line he takes today. We have GVL Narasimha Rao, spokesperson BJP, Veer Sanghvi, political analyst, and Manish Tiwari, former Union Minister from the Congress. Manish, I'll give you the chance to first launch the first attack. What is in your thing, the biggest lesson from the Bihar verdict?
Well, I think there are 2 or 3 messages which have come out explicitly. The first message is that this country does not take very kindly to an attempt to disrupt social peace. So therefore, if you try and change the fundamental narrative of India, people are going to react and react very strongly. The second message which comes through is that pomposity or verbosity does not pay. When you are in government, people expect that you should deliver. And unfortunately, delivery in the case of central government has been very thin on the ground. That's been the perception over the past 18 months. And the third message which comes out very clearly is that if you make smart alliances, it electorally helps you to get to your objective.
Raji, do you see this as being, say, a referendum on the centre or not?
You can spin it that way if you want to, but let's be very clear. I think this was always a very difficult election for the BJP to win, given the consolidation of the opposition vote. So at a very simple electoral level, this was a tall mountain for the BJP to climb in Bihar. Now, whether there is any direct correlation between the change of the BJP narrative in the last 4-5 months from being a transformational governance and development-led party and government to one that seemed to have been taken over by beef and other politics, right. You can argue, but I think the core of it was that this was going to be always a very difficult election to win, given the electoral, let us say, bipolarness of the Bihar election. So that is where I look at it. Of course, there are, you can, like Mani said, there are some arguments you can make that the government moved away from what 2014's mandate seemed to be, which is about development, prosperity, economic aspirations, cutting across caste lines, and allowed this kind of bipolar consolidation to happen in Bihar because of this new sort of, aberrational sort of a narrative.
Well, is this kind of introspection happening within your party?
Right from the moment that the results were flashed on the television screens, we have been doing this both publicly in the media and also indoor conversations or inner party confabulations. I think it was a very difficult election for us to begin with. It was the insecurity of the rival parties which forced them to form an unlikely alliance, both at the social level and also at an ideological level. This is the most unlikeliest of alliances, and Nitish Kumar, having suffered the worst defeats ever in Lok Sabha polls, actually had decided to stoop to conquer. I think had he decided not to really make peace with Lalu Prasad Yadav, had he not decided to cede ground to Lalu Prasad Yadav by agreeing to contest fewer seats, I think this result would not have happened. That's an electoral strategy which they have adopted. Everyone is interpreting this result according to their own convenience. And unfortunately, even the media somehow, I feel, has lacked objectivity and not looking for evidence before any conclusions are drawn. The evidence from this election clearly shows that there is no negative vote against the BJP or the NDA. So you cannot, by no stretch of imagination, can you say this is a vote against the BJP, NDA, forget about the central government. There is no positive vote for the JDU or JD. So their vote simply it's an electoral consolidation, electoral addition, vote addition which helped them, and they have not seen an accretion in their vote share. Had there been negative vote against us, or had there been positive vote against them, you could have interpreted this election to be anything but arithmetic. But this is purely an arithmetic which worked against us, and we need to be wary of it in future.
Veer, how do you react to this?
Actually, I agree with everything everybody said around the table. One of the problems with these elections is that it's like the elephant, blind men see it in different ways, but all of it is accurate. But let's look at the arithmetic first. The arithmetic was against the BJP. Everybody knew that. The BJP knew that too. But there's that famous Arun Jaitley quote from the parliamentary election, which is that we don't worry about arithmetic, we worry about chemistry. And their argument was that even though the arithmetic was against them, there were factors that were for them. First of all, they genuinely believed, I think, that Nitish was unpopular. They believed that the Lok Sabha election showed them that anti-incumbency would hit Nitish. They believed that Lalu was a discredited figure. They believed that his hold on the Yadav base was slipping, which is why they went for the Yadavs in this campaign. They believed they could disrupt the caste arithmetic with Paswan and Manji. And they believed, I think most of all, that the Modi charisma, the so-called chemistry that had swung it for them, even when the numbers were against them in the Lok Sabha election, would work this time. What this shows is that none of those factors worked. Ultimately, the original arithmetic held. As for the unlikely alliance, I think they were right in the sense that it was an unlikely alliance. They believed that the egos of the two men were such that the alliance would not hold, that there would be problems during the campaign. They believed, and I think Arun Jaitley said this openly, that Lalu's vote was not transferable, that people who supported Lalu would not vote for Nitish. I think they were wrong on both of those. As for the unlikely nature of an alliance between two sworn enemies, they made it easy for them because by raising all these Hindutva type issues about beef and intolerance and ghar wapsi, they created a climate in which these unlikely allies no longer seemed unlikely allies. They were seen as flag bearers of secularism fighting the Hindutva forces.
You wanted to come in?
No, I think the reason why I call this alliance to be the most unlikeliest alliance is Nitish Kumar is not seen to be a regressive leader. He is seen to be, he does not depend only on caste following. Okay, to that extent I concede. He has got a wider acceptability in the state of Bihar.
Fair enough,
But Lalu is an antithesis of what Nitish is. Lalu is totally regressive, totally depends on caste-based vote support. People laugh it off. I think you were in the field, you were in Bihar. I asked hundreds of people, what do you have to say about development during Lalu's regime? Even his hardcore supporters would laugh it away, would not answer that question.
Chemistry. Manish, how do you see this alliance? Is it so unlikely because Lalu and Nitish do come from the same ideological foundations?
Well, I would like to respectfully disagree. This was perhaps the most natural alliance possible. And the reason why I say that is, if you look at the narrative which the BJP put in place from 2014 till the November of 2015, it was about love jihad, ghar wapsi, every kind of retrogressive statement, Hindu Rashtra, Muslims are second-rate citizens, we'll celebrate the anniversary of the hanging of Nathuram Godse. So everything retrogressive which could be said in the public space was said by the Bharatiya Janata Party. Now there is a design behind that. And the design is that there is a clash of the idea of India. There is a pluralist narrative which has held the field from 1947 till now, and there is an attempt to change that narrative. Now, under those circumstances, people who believe in pluralism, whether it is Lalu and Nitish, who may have had differences insofar as Bihar is concerned, or for that matter the Congress, all decided to coalesce together. So therefore, in fact, the responsibility or the motivation for constructing this alliance really came from the narrative which the BJP put in place. Number two, you see, what also needs to be understood is that eventually there is no substitute for good state leaders. The BJP tried to fight the election in Delhi with Prime Minister Modi as the face. Well, they got 3, we got 0. In Bihar, again they tried the same thing. Apparently, I have not been there, but you had bigger posters of Amit Shah than any of the state leaders. Now, Amit Shah counts for nothing. Amit Shah counts for nothing insofar as Bihar is concerned. He may count for something in Gujarat. If they would have relied on their state leadership, Sushil Modi, who's a sober face out there, possibly they could have ended up doing better. So, therefore, in fact, it is the BJP's politics which helped Nitish, Lalu and the Congress construct this alliance. And number two, the reliance on a national leadership as opposed to a state leadership helped the combination of Lalu and Nitish with the Congress sort of playing the role of the coalescer to get through. That is it.
Rajiv, do you agree that the whole narrative of development had already been hijacked even before the Bihar polls really started hitting the ground?
No, look, I've been involved in a few state elections, obviously in Karnataka, but I feel that they fell into a trap, that if they had stuck to their playbook of development, governance, transformation, and positioning BJP as the alternate, I think, I mean, hindsight is, very clear and stark. So I think this would have been a different election. But falling into the trap of this debate about beef or religion or communalism is playing to the strength of people who've done this for decades. Lalu Prasad Yadav's politics and narrative has never been about anything but my caste, your caste, and our caste consolidation. So the BJP could have, should have started well, started talking about the promise of a new Bihar, talking about transformation, talking about development. Somewhere along the line, for I don't know why, whether they fell into the trap or they got led astray by polls or whatever, they went into a narrative that effectively played to the advantage of Nitish Lalu and effectively made Nitish and that coalition the underdog rather than the incumbent. In that entire,
they did the same with Kejriwal actually.
Maybe. I mean, but Kejriwal, you can argue Delhi, urban, semi-urban, different kind of an audience. Bihar is really India. It is the Hindi belt. Bihar and UP represent, political center of gravity in India. So I think I would have expected that what played out well in 2014 for them, which is this very credible, very, strongly articulated vision of governance and transformation, would have played well in Bihar as well. But for some strange reason, it got derailed and hijacked by whether it is elements within the BJP or whether it was a conscious strategy. That, of course, they have to tell us.
Okay, once again, I'll bring Veer into this also. Veer, this whole hijacking, now what happens? How does Modi take it forward?
I have no idea how much Modi had to do with the hijacking, because the BJP narrative is essentially that Modi is this development-focused guy,
Right.
and there are all these maniacs, these medieval people on the fringes, and they raise these issues, and poor old Modi, he has to try and shut them up, but no sooner does he shut one up than another starts. And don't worry about the fact that he's not saying anything publicly, because privately he calls them in and raps them on the knuckles. I mean, if this narrative is correct, then how do you explain Amit Shah, who's pretty much a proxy for Modi, getting up and saying, if we lose, crackers will be burst in Karachi? So I'm not even convinced that this fringe narrative works. I think it's coming from the top. It's a strategy, and a strategy that went wrong.
GVL, toughest question of all. How do you explain Amit Shah?
I, for one, do not believe that any statement made on the election trail, on the Bihar election trail, or anywhere else in the country really had anything to do with Bihar outcome. I spent enough time in Bihar. None of this so-called intolerance debate, jihad, ghar wapasi, none of it was discussed in anywhere in Bihar. These were not the real issues. The real issues were primarily, I think, local level incumbency. Certainly the consolidation at the state level was the biggest factor. Caste, I think every journalist, who went to Bihar, they came back saying eventually caste played a huge factor, and therefore you're not going to win this election. And I have no hesitation in saying this. We thought we were going to get a slice of the vote that Lalu Yadav's core constituency. We tried doing everything electorally right, but then it didn't work out.
I think Manish has a point of view on this.
No, I would like to disagree. You see, if the contention is that the hyper media narrative that we live in does not impact people's voting preferences, I would disagree with that. The difficulty is that a lot of us who do television, let's say Monday to Friday, and then decide to go out into the field on a Saturday, Sunday, do at times feel that there's a contradiction, because what you're talking about in the studio and what the people are talking about on the ground, there seems to be a disconnect, and therefore you get the impression that maybe their concerns and priorities are very different from what is being discussed.
I think to say that the media discourse does not affect the mind of a voter is basically to be delusional. I mean, they do. I mean, whether it is 100% influence or, on the edges, that we can leave for debating. But I still want to make a point. If you look at recent elections that the BJP has fought and won, which is Bangalore Municipal Corporation, in Kerala, the local body election.
Recent.
Every one of these elections in Ladakh, they have won by, there was no discussion of communalism, there was none of that narrative. The BJP does well, as they did well in 2014, by positioning themselves as the development, transformational governance reform alternative. Somewhere that got lost. I'm not saying it is deliberate, I'm not saying it was, I don't know if it was deliberate, I don't know if it was accidental, but I believe at some point when they analyze it, they will find that that was a mistake. Whether it was the fatal mistake that broke the back of the campaign, time will tell. But I think if they had stuck to their guns on that, because frankly, whether you are a Yadav or a Dalit or a upper caste, today bulk of India wants prosperity, economics, and a better future. You can't take that away. I mean, you can be whatever you are, but that promise made by a credible politician will always resonate. Now, if you bring into that beef and other politics, then you sort of create a different discourse.
Well, as you can see, there's much more to this discussion, but we need to take a quick break, so we're going to come back soon. Keep watching this. Welcome back to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. We are discussing the Bihar polls and its aftermath at the center. Just a little bit about, the opposition phase. People are now saying that Nitish Kumar will have grander ambitions. He may go on the national stage. And Rahul Gandhi may let this happen because, Rahul has 10 years to play out his missions.
Look, it's very difficult to make these predictions so many years in advance. But let's not forget that before the last general election, when Rahul Gandhi gave a press conference and he was asked if there's anybody in the opposition he respected, he said, quote, unquote, Mr. Nitish. I think we are very clear that within the Congress, there's a certain degree of respect for the opposition, which there isn't in the BJP. Also, the BJP made this point in 2014 that Rahul Gandhi could never be Prime Minister because there was no fire in his belly, whereas Amit Shah and Modi had fired up their bellies. So maybe that's true, maybe it's wrong. But nothing we've seen about Rahul Gandhi suggests that he's desperate to become Prime Minister. There's a lot to suggest that he has a certain vision of India, that he wants to revive the Congress. You may or may not agree with what he has done or his methods, but that much is clear. But personal ambition, we haven't seen that much evidence of. If there is no personal ambition, just as there wasn't in his mother's case, then if Manmohan Singh was acceptable, who knows, somebody else might be acceptable.
May I just come back on that? You see, between 2015 November and 2019 May, there is going to be a series of elections in 42 months. So every 3 months, you will have the entire political chemistry of this country changing. So anybody who's trying to extrapolate 2019 from the November of 2015, I guess is making a fundamental mistake. There is a government, an incumbent government, which has 42 months to go. A lot can happen in 42 months. Then you have elections coming up in states where important regional leaders are going to win, possibly in their own right. The Congress will win some of those states. The BJP may win some of those states. So eventually, you will be able to take a call, maybe closer to the November of 2018, when you go into the last round, which is Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh. That would give you an idea what the Lok Sabha lay of the land would look like.
And very often the opposite happens with these 4 states. But what about Amit Shah, GVL? There's a lot of speculation that, who's going to be the fall guy for this loss?
No, I said we can't blame our leadership for other parties coming together. Largely, I think to an extent, I think we may have raised the stakes in this election by looking like the winner for a long time. And the burden of expectations is possibly actually come as a shocker. But the reality is this election from the word go was loaded against us. And many of us were quite wary and aware of this particular challenge. But then possibly, I think in the run-up to the campaign, the expectations went up. And as a result, I think we look like we have performed very poorly than what we ought to have performed. I don't think it has any implications for any leadership question in the BJP. And you take a view in totality. Look at the performance of the same leaders in the last 2-3 years. You don't make Sachin Tendulkar the fall guy because he doesn't score a century in one match. So you look at someone's career's performance. It's not just a one-match performance that one looks at.
I have a slightly different take on it. I think the opposition has now realized they've stumbled on a formula to tackle the BJP's rise, which is that if they consolidate, in a bipolar model, that the BJP is vulnerable. And this was always known to the BJP, in my opinion. And the BJP now also realizes, or if they don't realize, they haven't realized, they must realize, that the only way they can work and win in a two-way kind of a contest is if their development and growth agenda cuts through the normal caste religion equation that the opposition thrives on. So the BJP has no option but to govern its way, grow its way into being a potential victor in a two-way fight, which is what 2019 is going to be. There are elections going to be held in 16, 17.
Yeah.
All of this is going to be BJP versus the rest of India. It's like this Dilip Irani cricket matches. It is because the opposition now has stumbled on the formula, which is if the Congress and the rest of the opposition work together, they have a critical mass and the index of opposition unity rises considerably, weighing against the BJP.
So BJP is the new Congress.
Yeah, so the BJP has no option but to go back to what it promised in 2014, which is that we will make this agnostic about religion, caste. It is going to be about the economy, it is going to be about development, it is going to be about aspirations and opportunity.
Okay, quickly.
Priya, may I just come in for a second? You see, what does Bihar mean for the country per se? Look, this entire election was about trying to change the composition of the Council of States. The reason why the BJP and the Prime Minister went into it whole hog, because there was a narrative that we can't get our legislative agenda through because we don't have a majority in the Rajya Sabha. So this was really about trying to change the composition of the Council of States, and it has not worked. And as Rajiv rightly said, that eventually if people do get smart alliances in place, then the one thing that the BJP will have to learn is that you have to reach out across the aisle in order to get business done.
The only point I would make, it is easy to promise development when you are in office. It's much less easy to deliver on development when you are in government. The suggestion that once Modi delivers on development, their problems are over is probably true. What is not clear is whether he knows how to deliver on development. Nothing in the last 14 months has suggested to me that he knows how to do it.
Development is on the top of our agenda. Prime Minister has focused on development. A large number of indicators are showing an improvement.
Right. I'm sorry, we're now running totally out of time. But that's it for this week. Thank you for watching this edition of Roundtable. We'll see you again, same time next week.